The president's campaign team is looking at targeting states that Hillary Clinton won in 2016. According to Politico, Trump has set his sights on Virginia, a state Democrats have dominated in the past decade, but where the party's three top office holders are embroiled in scandals. Leading the offensive is Vice President Mike Pence, who last week headlined a fundraiser for Republican state legislators up for election this year. Besides Virginia, Trump campaign officials have discussed making a play in New Hampshire.
Oh, by the way, his re-elect in New Hampshire is 31% as well.
Minnesota and Colorado and New Mexico, a state that Trump lost by 8 points. Meanwhile, this weekend, some of the Democratic presidential candidates participated in a forum on rural issues in Storm Lake, Iowa. And joining us now, one of the moderators of that event, Washington bureau chief for Huffington Post, Amanda Turkle. Amanda, good to have you on. First of all, from the event, what was your big takeaway? Who really shined?
Well, I think that one thing to note was that Amy Klobuchar felt very comfortable there. You know, she's from a neighboring state. She is, you know, Minnesota's very rural, so she was very, very comfortable on these issues, and she got a big reception from the crowd. Senator Elizabeth Warren had recently put out a plan on agricultural issues, and both the message that she and Klobuchar were stressing, sort of this antitrust issue, breaking up this agribusiness, these corporate consolidations that you see sort of taking over these rural areas and putting a squeeze on family farmers, that went over really, really well with the progressive audience there.
You know, it's so interesting, and we're so glad you're here this morning, bringing us not only footage of this but also reports of it, because Amy Klobuchar is a perfect example of a candidate who may not jump to the top of polls very quickly, who may not raise a ton of money right off the bat. But that is the sort of candidate that does very well in places like Iowa, where you go town by town, county by county. And you say she really made a good connection with the audience, as did Elizabeth Warren?
Yep, exactly. And, you know, you think rural areas and you think that maybe candidates need to be more moderate, but that is not what was happening at this forum. And yes, there was a lot of talk about agricultural issues, what's going on with farms and things specific to rural areas. But what I was also struck by was how many of these issues that we're hearing about on the national level in more urban areas were also true in rural areas. We solicited questions from the audience. We got a lot of questions on people who are concerned about guns and school shootings, a lot of questions from young people. Climate change was another one. And then there were people who said, look, I'd love to get into farming, but I'm a young person. The average age of farmers, I think, is something like in the high 50s, 59 or something like that. And she said, but I can't right now, in part because of student loan debt. And so that's obviously something that Senator Warren has talked quite a bit about. Other candidates in the race have as well. So these are issues that are affecting rural areas just as much as urban ones.
All right. Thank you so much, Amanda. We greatly appreciate you being with us and bringing us information from that forum. Very important.
Forum.
The Heartland Forum. And so, Eddie, we were talking about states that Donald Trump was talking about expanding into, and I can't help but laugh. Colorado? No way. New Mexico? No way. Virginia? Not on your life. I don't care what happens in Virginia on the statewide level. I mean, Northern Virginia has gone so deep blue.
Right.
That's just not going to happen. I think the real tell in that story is they're desperately looking to expand the map because they know they're in trouble in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania.
Right. I think the Republican Party will make, and Donald Trump's campaign will make a deep mistake, a profound mistake, if they think that the leadership in Virginia represents the energy of the grassroots of the state of Virginia. When we look at that election, particularly the midterms, what we saw was an extraordinary expression, outpouring of energy across the various spectrums within the Democratic Party. So the scandals that are kind of waning in some interesting sorts of ways and problematic ways in Virginia will not, I think, have a bearing on that energy. But, Joe, I've been been sitting here thinking about Donald Trump since the opening at the top of the show. Exoneration without the report. You know, I'm brilliant without the grades, and so on. I'm beginning to think that we should start thinking about him as sort of like the Wizard of Oz, a person who wants us to live in the illusion. And then when you look behind the door, when you look behind the screen, what do you see? You see a very small, insecure, fat man. Exactly, Joe.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, actually, Mickey, you've actually brought up the Wizard of Oz analogy before.
I've brought up that and also fitness, which I'll leave it there.
Fitness.
Some
What are you talking
think
about?
I've gone too far. Mental fitness.
Oh, mental fitness. Okay.
But
I was
no.
going to say, because he's very svelte. His
Look.
doctor from last year said he weighed 239
I think
pounds.
it's difficult when you talk about physical attributes. Having said that, for whatever it's worth, this is a president who mocks people's physical attributes all the time, which makes it even more, what's the word I'm looking for? Ironic.
Yeah.
Bob Woodward, thank you very much for being on this morning. And still ahead on Morning Joe.
Why are we talking about closing the border? Because not for spite, but to simply say, look, we need the people from the ports of entry to go out and patrol in the desert where we don't have any wall. We hate to say we told you so, but we told you so.
We will talk about that with Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, who represents border country in Texas. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.